Every word you've ever spoken is a weapon your ancestors died to forge. Picture this. You wake up tomorrow and everyone around you is speaking gibberish. Not just foreign languages. Complete, incomprehensible noise. Your mother's voice sounds like static. Your lover's whispers become meaningless wind. You're trapped in your own skull, screaming into a void that doesn't even echo back. That's where we started. And the journey from there to here, it's written in blood, sweat, and the desperate human need to say, I exist. I matter. Please, for the love of God, understand me. Welcome to the most epic story never told. How humans clawed their way from grunting animals to beings who can break hearts with a single text. We need to talk. The sensory hell of medieval communication. The year is 500 AD. You're standing in what used to be a Roman villa, now a crumbling shell that smells like wet stone and human desperation. Brother Augustine hunches over a manuscript by candlelight, his fingers black with ink, eyes burning from smoke. He's not just copying words. He's smuggling the future out of the past. Every stroke of his quill is an act of rebellion against the chaos outside, where languages are dying like plague victims. Listen, can you hear it? The silence where Rome's roar used to be. Latin, the language that once commanded legions, now fractures like old bones. In the streets, people speak in broken fragments, patching together Gaulish with Germanic grunts, creating something new out of desperation. The psychology of linguistic survival. Here's what they don't teach you in school. Language isn't just communication. It's tribal identity. When Rome fell, it wasn't just an empire that died. It was the shared vocabulary of civilization itself. Imagine Augustine's terror. He knows that if these scrolls burn, if these words disappear, entire ways of thinking vanish forever. He copies Virgil not because he loves poetry, but because he's terrified of a world where beauty has no name. Meanwhile, in smoky taverns, merchants are inventing pidgin languages on the fly. Why? Because trade means survival, and survival means making yourself understood to the Viking with the sharp axe who speaks only Norse. Speak their language or starve. Literally. Shakespeare. The first linguistic sociopath, the power move that changed everything. London, 1595. The Globe Theatre reeks of unwashed bodies, cheap ale, and raw ambition. William Shakespeare stands backstage, and he's not the romantic genius of your English class. He's a middle-class social climber who figured out the ultimate cheat code. If the word you need doesn't exist, just make it up and say it with enough confidence that people assume they're the idiot for not knowing it. Watch him work the crowd. Some poor groundling yells, "What's swagger supposed to mean?" And Shakespeare just smirks. He's not creating art. He's manufacturing cultural currency. Every invented word is a power play, a way to make the educated elite feel either superior or foolish. The emotional warfare of language. Shakespeare understood something brutal. Language isn't neutral. It's emotional manipulation weaponized as entertainment. When Hamlet says, "To be or not to be," he's not philosophizing. He's voicing every audience member's secret exhaustion with their brutal, short lives. Picture the plague widow in the pit, tears streaming down her face, because finally, someone put words to the weight in her chest. Shakespeare didn't invent despair, but he gave it a voice that still makes teenagers cry 4 centuries later. In a world where most people die before 35, language becomes how you achieve immortality. The British Empire. Linguistic colonialism and cultural kidnapping. The violence of forced translation. Calcutta, 1847. The British officer adjusts his uniform in the sweltering heat, sweating through his wool as he faces a room full of Indian scholars. Here's the scene they sanitized in your history books. Language colonization wasn't just policy. It was psychological warfare. Take a proud Bengali poet, force him to conduct business in broken English, and watch his soul shrink a little every day. But here's the plot twist. The colonized fought back with linguistics itself. They took English and made it theirs. Prep 1 became a word because Indians decided English wasn't efficient enough. They stole the master's language and improved it, creating something the British couldn't even understand. The birth of linguistic revenge in the Caribbean. Enslaved people created creoles that sound like English but carry African soul codes their oppressors couldn't crack. Every pidgin language was an act of resistance. You can chain our bodies, but you can't stop us from making your words dance to our rhythm. The psychological genius here? They made their oppressors feel linguistically inferior in their own language. British officers returning home with colonial accents were mocked in London drawing rooms. The empire struck back and language was the weapon. Cultural survival disguised as vocabulary lessons. The 20th century. Language at light speed, the jazz age when words got drunk. Harlem, 1925. The Cotton Club pulses with illegal gin and legal rebellion. Language suddenly gets fun. The 1920s didn't just invent slang. They invented the concept that language could be playful instead of just functional. Bees' knees and cat's pajamas weren't just expressions. They were verbal jazz riffs, linguistic improvisation that said we survived a war. We deserve to play with words. But underneath the party, there's desperation. These were people trying to talk their way out of trauma, using humor as morphine for a generation that had seen poison gas and machine guns. The digital revolution. When language broke the speed limit. 1990s. A teenager types LOL for the first time, not knowing they've just witnessed the birth of emotional shorthand. Suddenly, language doesn't have to wait for dictionaries or approval. It spreads like wildfire through dial-up connections, evolving faster than parents can keep up. Cyber everything. E-prefixes multiplying like digital viruses. The psychological shift is massive. For the first time in human history, kids are teaching adults new words instead of the other way around. The power dynamic of language flips overnight. Generational warfare disguised as grammar debates. Gen Z and Alpha, the linguistic apocalypse, and Renaissance. The final boss battle when language becomes meme. Present day. A teenager stares at their phone, crafting the perfect response that will either end a friendship or create a viral moment. Here's what's really happening. Gen Z isn't destroying language. They're evolving it into something more honest. No cap doesn't just mean no lie. It means I'm so tired of everyone lying that I have to explicitly label my truth. Delulu isn't just delusional. It's a way to acknowledge that sometimes self-deception is a survival mechanism in a world that feels insane. The psychological genius of modern slang. Every new word is a tiny revolution. When someone says period, they're not just ending a sentence. They're claiming authority over their own narrative. It's linguistic self-defense in a world that constantly tries to define you. Watch a Gen Alpha kid explain Ohio to their millennial teacher. The kid isn't being random, they're creating an inside language that adults can't penetrate, building linguistic walls around their digital native experience. Identity itself in an age where your personality is your brand. The eternal human scream. Here's the truth they don't want you to know. Every word you speak is connected to a medieval monk copying by candlelight, to Shakespeare sweating through opening night, to an enslaved person coding freedom into forbidden grammar, to a teenager right now inventing tomorrow's language on TikTok. Language isn't just communication. It's the longest continuous human scream across time. Each generation adding their voice to the chorus, shouting into the void, we were here, we mattered. We found new ways to break each other's hearts and heal them again. And that teenager ghosting you? They're not being cruel. They're speaking in a language their great-grandparents literally died to create. The language of choice, of boundaries, of having enough power to walk away without explanation. From grunts to ghosting, every word is a victory.